Good evening, everyone. I'm Julia Dittrich, and I'm currently professor at the Technical University of Applied Sciences in Rosenheim. Before I became a professor, I worked for more than 10 years in the startup ecosystem as a manager and founder, building up teams and scaling up in rapid growth phases. But that hasn't been my initial career plan. Initially, before I did that move into the startup world, I was working in a large corporation. And then, unexpectedly, at a conference, I got approached and someone asked me if I would be willing to join their startup and do the project management for the planned initial public offering. That sounded truly exciting. What would have you done in my situation? I thought one full night over it, and then I said, "Wise." And imagine, in that situation, it was quite risky. I had a position level in that corporation, I had my career established there, my salary plan, and last but not least, I had at that time a quite young daughter, and part-time schemes at the large corporation were attractive. A lot of colleagues approached me and asked me if I would be aware that this startup, as any other startup, would have a risk to fail 9 out of 10. And yes, I was aware of this risk. And still, taking that decision, it was actually one of the best moments in my career to decide to enter a startup where basically everything is against it. The learning pace was incredible. Had it taken me before half a year to encounter a new cockpit, I had to get into it within a couple of days. And this move gave me the opportunity to work together with a bunch of most amazing people, founders, building up new businesses and thereby changing the world. When I look back at that time of the shift 10 years ago and compare it to today's situation, of course, a lot of things are different. Today, it's much more common to move in between the startup world and the corporate world and to and fro, and vice versa. And also something else has changed. For a very long decade, the share of founders among the employable population has gone down. And then suddenly, in about 2021, for the first time for a very long time, it went up again, and we have more founders as part of the employable population. And I hope that makes me, and I hope that makes you so happy as it makes me, because this growth in founders is actually driven by the younger generation, by those people end of 20, beginning of 30. And all the efforts that have been taken, for example, by the founder centers in the universities are taking fruits right now. But are we all done? Are we sad? What do you think? Can we now lean back and say, we have done enough to engage more people to become a founder? I don't think so. I actually think we are quite far away from the moment where everyone who is skilled and talented enough to be a founder actually would dare to say, I am a founder. And let me just kind of exemplify this with one figure. You see here the founder teams in German startups that got venture capital funding. And you see here the share of only male founder teams is about 88%. Isn't that crazy? And at the same time, of course, we shouldn't only focus on the topic of gender when we talk about diversity in startup teams. There are many, many more aspects that need to be considered. For example, the question, does someone come from the countryside or from a metropolitan area? What is the educational background? Is it someone who has an academic background or someone with a vocational, more practical education? The topic of age, the topic of nationality, ethnicity. All that can contribute to a more diverse founder team. And let me explain right now why I think that this diversity in founders teams is so beneficial also from a commercial and business point of view. Think of the way how new businesses are developed. Typically, this starts with the identification of a business opportunity. And how do you identify a business opportunity? Typically, you experience a pain point somewhere in your daily life, something that is missing, that is not well covered by the existing business. And then, boop, there's the idea. And you have developed something new that probably no one had identified before. And of course, depending on your personal context, you may come up with very different pain points. Someone living in the countryside might experience a different pain point than someone in a metropolitan area. And with all these different experiences, of course, more business needs are identified, and yeah, that's fueling our economy. To make this point even stronger, why I think that diverse founders teams have such a power, let me share with you 3 stories of founders teams. I had the pleasure and honor to work with almost all of these people. And they have deeply inspired me by their boldness of being different, by their boldness to kind of stick to their ideas, although they all faced a lot of skeptical comments and so on in the beginning, and it was quite difficult for all of them in the beginning. So let me start with the story of Nico and Christina. When they started their business, they were like end of 20s, they were a couple. And what was special about Nico was that he had different to many stereotypical founders. He had not an academic education, but a vocational one. He had worked at an automotive science center for a couple of years. And this very practical experiences actually enables him to identify the needs and put himself into the needs of these automotive sellers and to have his focus on details that probably someone with a just theoretical academic education would have overlooked. And in the end, these two, Nico and Christina, they were so successful. They built up 2 startups and they scaled them. And in the end, they sold them. And I think they're just an amazing experience of also what someone with a vocational education can build up in the startup world. Another inspiring example is Jana. When she started to build her company, she was a mother of 3. And I don't know how many parents we have here in the round, but those who are parents probably know the situation that when you have kids at school and they have difficulties at school and you try to organize private tutoring, and this turns out to be quite difficult to organize and expensive and so on. And Jana had exactly this problem, this challenge, and she decided to make out a business idea out of it, a digital tutoring system And when she pitched it to investors, they were really skeptical. She was at the time a solopreneur. Her husband only later entered the business. She was mother of 3 and so on. And I think just they didn't understand the business model. And she had a really hard time at the beginning. She kind of kept going on. And in the end, she gained an American investor and she raised the funding and she scaled her business to the B2B world and was very successful. And again, I think a very, very inspiring story. And last but not least, the story of 5 friends. 2 couples, 5 friends, and all of them having kids. They had their normal jobs, they were in their mid-30s, and then they decided to disrupt the outdoor travel market. And what is so special about them is that the guys on the team had the typical skills that you would kind of expect in successful founders teams, finance, operations, and so on. And the ladies on the team, they were the ones who had strong skills in design, they were creative, they had a background in art. And you wouldn't consider this kind of core skill in the founders team. That actually was. It was that focus on design of art and branding that made them build wonderful colors for that product, and customers loved it. And it was one of the core factors why Evernote was developing so well. And I think another very inspiring story in how this kind of unexpected skills and talents can really contribute to founders' team. What can we now draw out of these stories? On the individual, when you are an offbeat founder, meaning you don't meet kind of stereotype picture of what a founder should be, don't be frustrated. You have actually an amazing asset. It might be able to identify something that everyone else has overlooked so far. Do then your homework. Substantiate your founder intuitions by figures, by facts, and communicate that your being different is actually your asset and not your obstacle. On an institutional level, what can we learn out of these stories? I think in general, we have so far established a lot of great founder support in metropolitan areas and universities. And as I have shown before the figures, I think generally it shows that we can get more and more young people into it. But we have to extend this approach. We have to extend it, for example, to rural areas. We have to extend it to people that are not part of academia, but that are part of the practical work, that have gotten a vocational education. And last but not least, I think we really need entrepreneurial education for every pupil at every kind of school to really raise the next generation of founders from a very broad base. And I think our journey to inspire more and other people to become founders just has started, and I invite you to get with me on that journey. Thank you.